The Supreme Court issued a rare weekend ruling Saturday, temporarily blocking the Trump administration from deporting a group of Venezuelans held at a Texas detention facility using a centuries-old wartime law. This comes after an emergency appeal was filed last Friday by the American Civil Liberties Union, challenging the administration's use of the 18th century Alien Enemies Act. Last month, the Trump administration deported more than 100 Venezuelans alleged to have ties to the notorious Tren de Aragua gang to El Salvador using this law. In a Truth Social post Monday, the president said, quote, "My team is fantastic, doing an incredible job. However, they are being stymied at every turn by even the U.S. Supreme Court, which I have such great respect for, but which seemingly doesn't want me to send violent criminals and terrorists back to Venezuela or any other country for that matter, people that came here illegally." CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen joins us now. So, Jake, tell us more about the Supreme Court's decision and where the case goes from here.
Right, Lindsay. So because of the Supreme Court's decision that President Trump vaguely referenced there and that we know was a couple weeks ago, they allowed the Trump administration to resume these Alien Enemies Act deportations. What they did not allow was what happened when those first batch of flights first took off on March 15th. Which was that these men were given no notice that they were being deported. They were simply just brought onto a plane, and they were given no ability to potentially appeal or talk to attorneys while they were on their way from being detained to being put on this plane to then being brought to that supermax prison in El Salvador. The Supreme Court mandated that the Trump administration make sure that there's a reasonable amount of time. How much time that is unclear, but that for these people to talk to attorneys and for them to potentially appeal and say, hi, I'm not a member of Tren de Aragua and I'd like to talk to a lawyer. The Trump administration says that they've been complying with the order. The ACLU says they were not. And that Thursday morning, overnight into Friday, into late Friday, they said that people around the country, immigrant advocates and other people said that their clients were being moved across the country to a base in Texas where there was a staging ground essentially for another one of these badges, and that the Trump administration was not giving these people the ability to appeal, which is how we ended up at the Supreme Court getting involved when a number of lower courts did not.
I want to ask you the latest on Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This is the man who had been living in Maryland with his wife and kids, was mistakenly deported due to an administrative error, as admitted by the Department of Justice, to El Salvador to seek out this terrorism prison. He's no longer there. He's in a different El Salvador prison now. Just to catch people up to speed, the Democratic senator from Maryland had just visited Abrego Garcia last week. What is the latest on his case?
Well, we're still waiting to find out what the results of a judge-ordered fact-finding mission is. She signed an order today. It said that most of that information, if it relates to government operations, will remain classified. But what we do know, Lindsay, is that last night and again today, the United States acknowledged for the first time that Mr. Abrego Garcia was moved outside of that prison. And for over a week, Lindsay, the Department of Justice said that he was there, even though Senator Van Hollen said that before about 9 days ago now, the Department of Justice, or that the Salvadoran government moved him from that supermax prison to a private facility in which he has furniture, a bed, is not placed among other gang members. He's still there. We've seen no update from the U.S. government in any of these daily status reports that there are actually efforts underway to bring him back, but they have acknowledged he has been moved outside of that supermax prison, and we do know that some congressmen were, Democratic congressmen and women were down there today and were denied a meeting coming after Maryland Senator Van Hollen's meeting last week.
We know that a judge has ordered the United States to help facilitate his return back, which the Supreme Court upheld. Is there a deadline for that?
So there isn't, and I think this is why the judge wants to be so careful up the road in Maryland in terms of making any decisions about the Department of Justice and their lack of cooperation and lack of listening to her orders in this case. The Trump administration has said all along, Lindsay, that they're going to facilitate his return if he can find a way to a port of entry. So if he somehow found a way out of Salvadoran custody and back to the U.S., they also said that they would return him back to a different country, not El Salvador, which would be legally allowed.
Jake Rosen, thank you.